most men in just like almost every community are not desirable men. Only about 10 to 15% of those men are really desirable. You have like 40% men graduating college and 60% women, but the women's desire for them to have men on their level, what then makes you feel? If she can't get a man, remember, she's educated and she wants to do very well for herself. If she can't submit to the black man in America, then how do you feel she's going to do it in Central America, where that man makes less money? How do you feel she's going to do that in Brazil? How do you feel she's going to, and then dare I say, coming to Uganda, where as you would say, the original African man is not earning.
Hi guys, welcome to Kenganda. My name is Janita Mai and this is the REPAT podcast.
Hi guys, welcome to Kenganda and this is Outer Brand. Feels good to be here.
Okay.
Yes, Master Gabs is in the building once again. Happy to be here with my people.
Okay.
O'Shea Duke Jackson, Del Paso Heights, African American.
Yeah, we do have our audience in the background. They'll also chime in where they can and give us their expert opinion. But O'Shea, take this one away. So
shout out to Dr. Umar Johnson. You know, I am a big fan and a big critic at the same time of our brother. And of course, you know, he's not a fan of interracial relationships. So he happened to be on this podcast or YouTube called I Never Knew TV. And he was talking about if black women can't find a man in black America, they can find somebody somewhere else. Let me see if I can get the clip here and we'll play it. It's quite long, but let me see here.
So do black women have to consider dating outside the race since there's not enough men available for them, and the ones who are available want a woman outside of the race? I would still be against it. I would say that the black woman can go north to Canada and get her a black man. She can go south to Central America. More than enough black men down there. More than enough black men in South America. More than enough black men in the Caribbean. I think she has to broaden her horizons, but I don't think she has to go outside of her race. And honestly speaking, I think it would be to her advantage to do so. And the reason I say that is because in America, we have had the economic emasculation of the black man, where women have been put in charge of the leadership of the community. And it has been this way for at least 50 years. We have created a culture where it's okay for black men to not be masculine, to not be leaders. So if the black woman is looking for that traditional black masculinity, she will definitely find that in Africa, where black men weren't subject to that white emasculation system. She will find him in South America. She will find him in the Caribbean, because these are communities where black men are raised and taught how to live off the land, how to build a house with your bare hands, how to be a provider for your family. They very much still have that original killer instinct, not killer in terms of killing somebody's life, but that do or die for my family mentality that a lot of us in the States don't have.
So I guess the topic of the discussion, are African men more masculine than African American men? This is going to be a classic. We'll start off with Agaba, since he got experience on both of these realms.
Okay, I would, not to paint every black American man, not every African American man, not to paint them with a broad brush, but I would say yes. Generally speaking, there's a heightened level of femininity when it comes to the way that young black men are raised in America. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it, I'm not going to sit here and talk about statistics of, you know, young black males born into single motherhood and all of that stuff. But just the fact is the fact. Mm-hmm. Particularly among this millennial generation.
Uh-oh.
Let me call it that as well. People that are born, let's call them 1990 and after. There's a lot of young men out there who are raised by their moms, their sisters, their grandmothers, and they deal with things from a feminist perspective. They have a feminine attitude about how they deal with the challenges that they face in life. They have a feminine attitude about how they solve problems, how they resolve conflict. And it can definitely lead one to believe that this is not a manly man. Without the example of a strong male figure in your life, be it a father, an uncle, a big older sibling who also has had the impact of a father figure in their lives, a grandfather, without that dynamic consistently and readily available, particularly as a young man who gets into his teenage years. I've seen too many cases where young men who enter their teens and the only influence that they have is a woman's influence, they just learn all of the wrong habits. And it just becomes something that's quite challenging for you to then grow up 15, 20 years later and be looked at as a grown man who understands the principles of what it takes to be a protector, a provider, a caretaker. Now, on the other hand, African males, African men in particular, I think lean too much toward this whole macho man masculinity thing.
Okay.
I think it's a world of two extremes. I think to a large degree, a lot of the men that I know of who were born and raised here in Uganda, to a large degree, whether they came from dual parent homes or not, they did have male influences in their lives. If it wasn't necessarily their father, there was an uncle or a grandfather or somebody of that nature to inject and install that sense of what a man should be. A lot of it is cultural as well. A lot of it is, this is how in my culture men and women relate to each other. And therefore, if you're not demonstrating this principle of manliness, if you're not demonstrating this principle of manhood, then you're falling short of that measure. So, you know, just to conclude my comments, I will say that generally speaking, there's a lot of femininity out there, particularly in the Black American male culture. I don't know that it's something that is going to change anytime soon, just because of, again, the trend of the way that young men are raised increasingly by single mothers out there. But there are also quite enough alpha males out there, Black American men, who show and demonstrate and prove on a daily basis that they're made of what it takes in order to be able to be taken seriously and respected as a man who commands respect and demonstrates that he knows what's up. So I won't say 100%, but I'll say it's enough. It's enough. Yeah.
When it comes to masculinity, when you compare the two, the African man and Black American, I think the African man, the original African man, takes it. Reason being, just the mere fact that we are the original and we come directly from the source, that makes us more muscular. In a way,
the comments.
Yeah. In a way that we don't, our minds are not, you know, these Black Americans, where they grew up from, their environment is quite different from ours. I don't know, I've not experienced, I don't have much experience there, but I can just tell. Where they grew up, it's not, the conditions, first of all, are not so harsh. As compared to an original African man.
Explain.
Yes, I'm explaining.
Okay, sorry.
Number one, how can I say? Do you guys know what it means to be an original African Black man?
What does it mean?
Like if we are to go, for example, to northern Uganda, the condition in which those guys grow, I don't think you can compare it to the conditions of someone there, in some Black American there. You guys, the Black American is growing up, first of all, in a first world country. Yeah. The original African is coming from a third world country. Yeah. So my view, already the environment, I don't know. That's why you see most of the people, when they want okay, they assume that when they want a softer life, most black Africans, they want to live because they believe at least the life there in the States is quite softer. Yeah, as compared to here. They believe that there are more opportunities and all that. And I don't know how I can say it, but yeah. The original African will always be the original who has seen it all and comes out as the toughest. Yeah, as the most masculine. Yeah. I'll explain more as we move.
We have some tribalism here today.
Right?
Okay, what about you, Jonita?
Well, first of all, the way I interpret someone being masculine is in how they provide, how they protect, and how they treat other people. That's how I would interpret being masculine. It's not about how many muscles you have, how many abs you have, how many times you go to the gym, how many times you're street fighting, how many times you're pulling out guns, how many times you're being rough around the edges and being because to most people that's how they would describe being masculine and whatnot. Look at Gums.
I'm with you. I'm following you. Please continue.
But to me, I feel like being masculine is how you treat other people and how you come through as a man. Now, are African men more masculine than African American men? Let me just give you let me separate the two. So me dealing with African men, Brian saying the original African man.
The original.
You know what? On a scale of 100, I would give them 80%. Not bad, honestly, because African men do come through, they do provide, but they're also deadbeats there. So let's not just give them the props and say they're this and they're that. But me dealing with African American men and why I say I'm dealing with them is because I'm dealing with you in the comment section who's going to cuss me out and be negative and write a paragraph wishing me bad. It's you that I'm talking about. What I've seen is it's more aggressive. It's the aggressiveness and it's the taking something small out of proportion, in my opinion. Because I could say something on the podcast and then someone will want to pour their heart out in the comment section. And you can know that that's not enough. Because you can differentiate between an African man commenting and an African American man. I feel like they want to take things overboard. Like you want to go overboard to come to my Instagram and go into my DMs and continue spewing your hate. That level of, I must get her. I have to one-up her. I must teach her a lesson. Or she must know what she's doing. Or I need to let her know who is the boss and something like that. See, now they're two different people.
Now they're turning feminine there.
No, it's not like they're turning feminine.
Can we talk about something that's, I understand somebody commenting, but you're talking about somebody you're dealing with online that you know, and then somebody that's all. Can you give an equation? Whereas you met this person in real life, you dealt with them, and then that person in real life, you dealt with.
Well, I can definitely say that African American men are also masculine in their own accord. We even had someone here was saying they're more masculine than African men. I feel like what I said before, I still stand by it. I feel like they go the extra mile and they, want to one-up you. Even in provision, they'll one-up you and treating people well and whatnot. So yes, I feel like I would say African American men are more masculine than African men. But I love both. So
you know what?
Is that
which one do you think you'll end up marrying?
This one.
What do you mean this one?
Do you think you're gonna marry the original African man, or are you marrying an African American? You think
whoever God wills for me is who I will. Gabs, you had something to say about what I had to say.
Yes, I think you make a valid point by the way that you evaluated what makes a man masculine,
right?
As a caretaker, as a provider, and all of those things, right? I also believe, and I've seen it many, many times, the way that African American men dive head first off the top level into the deep end to fall in love with African women is crazy. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy. And I think a big part of that is the way that the women treat them, right? For an African American man to either find, and I'm not talking about a African girl who's like me, who is of African parents but born in the US and grew up with an American mentality. I'm talking about either she comes from the US and finds herself there, but is traditionally brought up with the mentality of a traditional African young woman. or he comes here and finds his bride here. I think the way that the African woman treats her man allows the African American man to feel
More
like a king in a way.
More masculine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in exchange for you making me feel like a king, I'm going to pour everything that I have into you to make sure that you know how much I love you, to know how much I appreciate you, and to make sure that you just continue to exchange this kind of a feeling with me that I love so much.
Yeah.
African American women don't treat their men that way. They do not treat their men that way. Right? It's the exception, not the rule, for a man to be treated as a king in his own household. More often than not, the woman is the leader in the household. So with all that being taken into consideration, it's not surprising to me to hear you say that in your experience, you find African American men to be more masculine than African men.
Yeah.
Just because I think, according to the way that they relate to you, they're more willing to demonstrate the behaviors that you value and that you appreciate. But yeah, I think there's a certain hardcoreness.
Yeah.
There's a certain sternness. There's a certain we don't love them hoes kind of attitude that African men think is the right way to be a manly man.
Are you listening, Brian?
Yeah. So.
But yeah, I before we get to it, I wanted to speak about how upbringing affects masculinity for both sides, for African men and African American men. And like you said, because most African men they grow up in a 2-parent household, so they're able to see how a man acts and they're able to replicate that, you know. Whereas in what I'm trying to say is, my dealings with African American men on like that level of maybe trying to date and whatnot, what I've seen is that most of them have an anxious attachment style. An anxious attachment style where if someone goes a whole day without maybe messaging you back, that's like a big issue. Or if someone doesn't pick up your call, then that's a big deal. Or if someone doesn't, like if you do not give them attention when they need that attention, then the reaction is, oh, now they want to cut you off immediately. And that's
femininity. Femininity.
It's not that. No.
Behaving like a woman.
No, it's not that. It's more of like an anxious attachment style, because most of them, sorry to say this, have grown up in a single parent household. That it comes from a place where you feel like, oh, one parent had to leave, so now I'm staying with this parent, and there's that gap that needs to be filled. In that when they get to relationships, there's that need for, oh, you need to be with me at all times, or I need to know your whereabouts, I need to know this and whatnot. And you can ask these girls, I know some girls who have dated African American men, and they're like, oh, I have to send my location all the time, or I can't just leave without telling him, or something like that. You understand? So that's why I say the attachment style comes in, and that's how I perceive upbringing affecting masculinity for both sides.
I see that as insecurity.
Is it?
Because the reason why I say insecurity is because when you've grown up seeing relationships start and end, relationships can become fractured very easily. And a young African American man can grow up and have a few stepfather figures in his life because it's mom's boyfriend and then mom's fiance and then mom's this or that. And like you've just said, at the drop of a hat, the relationship can end quickly and abruptly and very traumatically for a lot of these young men. But in an African household, Mom Dukes will hold it down.
Exactly.
She will weather any storm. There's no amount of fuckery that the old man can put her through that will tell her to leave.
Yeah.
So that's another reason why I think African men just happen to be a lot more secure, or they demonstrate that type of secure behavior because they're just like, this is normal to me. If we don't talk every day, if we don't talk every other day, I feel like I'm secure enough to know you ain't going anywhere.
Yeah.
You're not leaving me. But that also gives me the freedom to relax and not necessarily cater to you and be all lovey-dovey with you and treat you the way that you may want to be treated.
Yeah. She.
So in that clip, Dr. Umar Johnson, although he's an excellent intellectual, he fails to understand why And I'll get to you original African guys here in a minute, but I want to deal with, he's saying, well, if she can't find a woman in the United States, he's inferring that it's a black man's fault as to why the black woman is unsuccessful in the United States. Typically, if you are unsuccessful in your own home country, and this is not all the time, but usually, it would indicate that there is an issue with you, because still as a woman, you would still have, most men are not desirable. So, women always use statistic, well, there's 2 million more African-American women than black men. But the reality is that most men in just like almost every community are not desirable men. Only about 10 to 15% of those men are really desirable. So women have a lot of opportunities to get a man in the black community. But when they can't get a man, then it's all about the fact that, okay, well, you have these black men are gay and all of this. And as you're starting to see, I was watching this video the other day, in the 60s and the 70s in the United States, about 58 or 60% of all university were graduating men and 40% women. Now, what we've seen in now is the opposite. You have like 40% men graduating college and 60% women, but the women's desire for them to have men on their level is the same. So Dr. Umar Johnson fails on one point. The first point is this: what is the reason why those men in the black community don't find these women desirable? I believe Agaba answers that to a certain degree. Okay. And then number two, what then makes you feel? If she can't get a man, remember, she's educated and she wants to do very well for herself. If she can't submit to the black man in America, then how do you feel she's going to do it in Central America, where that man makes less money? How do you feel she's going to do that in Brazil? How do you feel she's going to, and then dare I say, coming to Uganda, where as you would say, the original African man is not earning as much as what you see brothers in the West is earning. And that includes Ugandan Americans living in the West. Because we would include them when we're talking about an American. I will even say those guys, such as yourself, we would include them into our population, right? To this conversation.
Yeah.
So she's saying that I can't even find a guy like Agaba in the States. Otherwise, I would deal with him. So let's go to Canada or let's go someplace else. So then you're talking about this man that you're going to be encountering. You feel like you're going to submit to him. On average, he's going to earn less money. On average, he's in a different culture. He's grew up in a different way. And how you feel that you would want to be treated. I mean, the original African man told us that if you want that romance and stuff, go to Telemundo. Fly out of Africa if you're looking for romance. This is what Mr. Original African Man said last few podcasts. So now I want to get back to masculinity and what I believe that it is. Being an African American man. Masculinity is about running to the responsibility to make your own life better and having your goals and desires, and then taking that standard to the community that you're going to be in, involving your woman and making the provisions and the sacrifices for that. One thing I would say about African men, they interact with each other in a much more positive fashion than we do. I have some brothers here from Houston, Texas. There was we were at Thrones on Saturday, and there was a fight almost about to happen, but the guy just grabbed him and pointed at him. But he had so much respect for his African brother that he didn't strike him. You would not see that in America. Okay, so African men, they are more masculine in how they come to when there's conflict. You won't see violence. You can see yelling, or you can see screaming, but you won't see punches thrown. Whereas in America, you're not gonna get nobody's face, and you ain't gonna see nothing happening. Somebody gonna fuck you up. So in that regard, and that is a lack of masculinity in that. However, when it comes to wanting to take care of a woman, provide for the woman, the question for both the original African man and the black American man is that woman worth it? That's the question. Because you can find a lot of women here and in Africa will say that the original African man, as Brother Alder Bryan said, don't feel that she's worth being taken care of, but they want to still fuck her. Right? The same thing is the same case in America. The reality is this. African American men do lack some of the things that the forefathers had. But now when it comes to wanting to take care of responsibility for the women, a lot of black men that come from single parent homes, like my parents divorced when I was 14. I was the guy, and my brother had, went on with his life. I was the one designated to make it for my family. Like, you have to break this chain in the cycle. Just like an African guy going to America and his family is here somewhere in the village. So we have that pressure on us. So when you have to step up to the bat and swing the bat for your family, like Puff Daddy, if it's about, being masculine, hey, that you got to have that killer instinct to become somebody. A lot of black men have that. I think when it comes to women is, as far as us taking care of you, number one, you're not going to go submit to the guy in Central America. Let's just leave that out, Doc. We know that's not going to happen. If it's an African man, he got to be an African man in America. Because if he's not, she's going to be disrespecting that brother. A lot of American women are coming over to Africa and dealing with local African men, and they're being, they have more money than them. What did the guy said? We did an episode on it. The guys are beating them. Right? So Dr. Umar Johnson is setting these women up for fail. Most cultures, and I wanted to, before we go back, look at Somalians. Somalians don't spend their time marrying Ugandans, do they?
No.
Ethiopians don't spend their time marrying Ugandans, do they? Or Nigerians. In order for Ethiopian to marry an African American or a Nigerian, or what do you need to be? You need to be exceptional. Like Tyler Perry got a baby by Ethiopian or Eritrean. The average Ethiopian can do that, but not nobody like Tyler Perry. Ethiopians and Somalians and Eritreans and people from Djibouti, you have to be exceptional to deal with their women. Is that right?
True. So
now what you're telling is, okay, as a woman, are you so exceptional? Most groups will force you, as an African American. If I want to deal with a Ugandan woman, I have to be better than Alda Bryan on average, or a local guy. Because see, for me, you're going to make me do something when I come here. Is that true? I'm an American. I cannot come there and not do something such that the local, I got to be better than this guy. I'm a foreigner. I might be black. So what I'm saying is, these American women, you're going to go to a place, you got to be better, but you're going to also expect that guy to be better than what you're used to. And it usually is not going to happen. And typically what I want to say is African Americans typically are people from the Western world. And I'm talking about this in the same block. Nigerian Americans, African Americans, Ugandan Americans, people from Britain, from France, they are better off typically marrying each other. Usually. For women are going to get a better time in the Western world because you understand certain things, certain brands, all this. But women coming here to marry a guy that makes less money than them, and then I'm going to say this, what is the use for a guy that really want to, if a guy is from Uganda and he's rich, do he need to marry an American woman? For what? What's the point? Unless he really wants to, but you're probably not going to be able to beat the women here. In his eyes, if we're going to be real. Because you out of the culture. You're not going to understand what's going on. You might not honor me the way I want you to be honored. So what I'm saying, this whole masculinity thing is many variations. And what women want, and I'm going to tell you about black women in America, what I feel. When women say it's masculinity they're looking for a masculinity that can't respond to them, such that they can do whatever they want. In other words, you work, you give me money, and you shut up, but I don't want your leadership. That's the kind of masculinity a lot of sisters are. They don't want nobody to tell them, no, that ain't how it work. I wear the pants here. Most women in America ain't looking for that. Ain't what they're looking for. Most women look for masculinity as you work your ass off, you provide for me, you give me what, and I do what I want to do. I'm not going to cook for you, I'm not going to clean for you. That's a lot of, I'm not saying all. But the kind of masculinity I think that the brothers are looking to give here in the world, and as the Gaba talked about, is masculinity is, no, Jonita, you're not going out tonight. It's not safe over there with them friends. You're going to stay home with me. A lot of women don't want that masculinity. Do you want a brother to come in and really lead like that? Do you want that? Most women don't want a man to lead them like that, but that is the real masculinity that men want to give. Both African and African American, both men want to be able to protect. And our protection sometimes is not what you like. Is it true?
Yep.
So that's what I think the conversation is about. Let me get with a man that I can tell him whatever I want to tell him, and I ain't got to listen to him. So let me go run away from it. But I think you're going to find a rude awakening, and that's why a lot of sisters over here is getting beat by some of these guys. I'm telling all of them. But men want to lead. Men want to protect. And you can't tell us how to do it. That's what I feel.
Okay.
I think it's that whole thing of providing security in a sense that you kind of hinted on it, because in so many homes growing up, we are grounded. And usually it's like if you have a father or uncle at home, even mothers, but also with fathers and all, like, do not move at this time. Boys should not come and see you. Like, it's like, we call it tough love. Yeah. So that kind of like, they provide security in that sense, So I think it's more like provision. Could be food, it could be school fees, it could be the clothes, and then also security. And then you see, even when it's marriage, usually it's done from the father's homes or from the father's sides. It's the ones that make the decisions. It's usually the men. So it's all those things that define, being masculine.
I want to just make one concluding rebuttal to a point that Brian made earlier.
The original African man.
Yeah, the original African man. And, not that I come from this background, but I have to come to the defense of these African Americans that you say don't understand the struggle. I believe wholeheartedly that, again, referring back to another conversation that we had, that I had to be educated. I had to become schooled on the realities of the hardship of life for a disenfranchised community in Black America. It's different, man. It's just different. Let me tell you something. Uganda, food scarcity doesn't exist in Uganda. I don't care. You may be broke on Kampala terms, but in your village, you're not broke.
Yeah.
Because you can eat food. You can grow your food. You can sustain your family on just what you maintain on your little small parcel of land in your village. Kampala residents might call you poor, might call you a villager, but by the standards of not being able to put food on your family's plate on a daily basis, you don't identify with the struggle of a young Black American in the hood, in the ghetto, in a system that is designed to hold you down, that is designed to make it such that you do not have a father in your home to take care of you and support you and uplift you and bring you up. There's an entire world that is created with devices, laws, systems in place to hold you down and make sure you stay there. Whereas here, people can uplift themselves out of nothing. Trust me when I tell you, I'm the product of such an individual. So I just wanted to be very clear and just clean up that misunderstanding that just because we look at the toughness and the muscularity and the struggle that the original African man has to go through in order to be able to make it on an everyday basis. Do not discount and do not, just thumb your nose at the challenges that exist in the Black American community, because it's very real. Yeah. Very, very real. And I do dare say that if you take the average person from here, plant them over there, they wouldn't survive a month. I can guarantee you that.
Let me just say this, and then I don't know why people like to say because of hardships, it makes you more masculine, because you're going to have some people that come from those hardships and then rise to the occasion. But most people will not. And, like if you talk to people here, let's just say it was the same conversation in America. What do you think about X, Y, and Z? You're going to get people explaining something in a pejorative way. Oh, these men are lazy. Same thing in our community. Yeah. And here are the reasons why. I honestly believe that in both Black America here, both Black America and Africa, there is African men do a better job of the big man culture. What I mean by this, in America, we don't like leadership at all. We don't like top guys. Those are the guys that get killed in America. In Africa, there is hierarchies here. Africa is very big on paternalism. Yes, sir. No, sir. Hey, boss. What all that? That's the big man. Shut up. You know, he's in the room. So you see that hierarchy of things that happen here in Africa. Whereas in America, we don't believe in that type of shit. Like, who you think you are? You know what I'm saying? Like, and that's because you don't have the guys there. So African men, in my honest opinion, they from the guys in my community, they tend to be more easier to, and this is just African men overall. In the States, I've lived in Europe, they're more malleable to work with. Although there's still problems working with men because men are ambitious and rambunctious and want to typically take over your stuff. That's how men operate all over the world. That's just why you have so many military coups in Africa. But on average, more African men understand, okay, Agaba is the top guy. He is the brains of X, Y, and Z operation. We need to fall in line with that and follow suit. Like more or less like Indian men do or Asian men do or European men do. African men have that order. And in America, you cannot find that order. Yeah, because it's like, nigga, who do you think you are such that you should be leading me? That's why Hispanic gangs and black gangs operate differently. So I would say that just because you're going through hardship, it doesn't mean that makes you more masculine, because what makes you more masculine, again, it talks about like your ability, number one, to solve problems, not only for yourself, but for other people. When you come into the room as a group of men, what impact do you men have on your people such that X, Y, or A, B, and C, D, and E existed because you were there? And masculinity is about results. It's about, okay, there's an issue. We need to handle it this way. The system is this thing here. We want to go ahead and put it in the work to solve X, Y, and Z problem. And then because of us, that's what you see. You see a better neighborhood or you see more resources. And when I see in both communities, I think African women and African American women are complaining that both guys are not doing that to their potential. I would say that both groups of women will look at both of us and saying that we're underachieving in those areas. But I do believe African men have more of a better ability to get along than us. And if you can get along with your men, you have a better chance of developing things. I won't say it's so much better, but it's like you don't see African men arguing or fighting or stuff like that. Now, scamming, yes. But because but even if you scam somebody here, they're not gonna kill you. Whereas in America, man, somebody come get your mama. So I would say, in a woman's perspective, women look at how men treat each other. And so when you come to Africa and you see like an Igbo party, a Buganda themed party, and you see the men that are interacting in the culture, and you see how organized things are, you won't see stuff like that in Black America. So as a woman, you're more likely to want to be a part of what's happening here in this system, even if it's less money than being a part of what you would see in America, because there's more order and more rules here as a people than what we have back home, from what I see.
That's a good point.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And that's the perfect way to end this episode. Unless someone has something else they'd like to add on. Everyone's just shaking their head. But Agaba, tell us about your podcast.
Yeah, so Allergic to Average is a podcast where my partner Jacob and I, shout out Jacob, aka Play One, we meet and talk to individuals who are just out here trying to get better in life, who are high achievers, who are out here striving to be the best that they can be. So season 1 is out now, Allergic _to _average, A2A _podcast. On Instagram, on Twitter. Follow us on YouTube. Subscribe as well. Shout out to the Kangana Nation for all the love that you've been showing us and sending us some of your good listeners and viewers. We appreciate you guys, man. And we're just going to keep going up from here.
Yeah, lovely. Yeah. And it's an amazing podcast, by the way. I clean and listen to the podcast. So maybe you should do the same thing.
Are you gonna go get some advice?
I actually did get some advice from
are you gonna go give some advice?
Gabs.
How to
Yo,
be fake rich?
I'm looking at Gabs. Is he going to have me on as a guest?
I
Is
am
the question.
excited to invite you on an episode of the
This is how you be
Legendary
fake
Podcast.
rich in
Yeah.
this Uganda?
100%.
Change your life.
No, let me tell you something. First of all, this young lady here is
Oh.
far from average. She clearly is allergic to average in the way that she handles you. She's far from average. So
Yes,
shout out to your whole team, by the way. Rachel,
Yeah.
Kuhani, all the ladies who work here in Kenga and the Nation. I have so much respect for you all and looking forward to more things to come.
Thank you. And we're so happy to have you here. Outer, original man. Original,
original
African
Africa.
man.
From 20 million years ago.
Just tell people where they can find you and if you have any content they can watch.
Yeah, as usual, I'm there on all platforms. I don't run away. I'm there. Go check me out, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, everywhere. Outer Brian, OUTA, Brian. Yeah, go check out my content if you feel bored. There's a lot of nonsense there. But it is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't see him on the podcast being all calm and sensible and think that's why he's on his page. Because you're going to laugh. So also don't be offended if you're on his page. FYI. Oshe, where can they find you?
Just this last thing I know is hot, right? Just want to tell a quick story. So, November, me and Rachel were at Entebbe Airport. This nice bald-headed man who's missing a hair for about 30 years came and knew who I was, and of course he explained to me he had an American accent and things like that. I was like, who is he? This guy, and I was very reluctant to want to engage him. And that is Mr. Agaba. We flew to Kigali, and then when we came back for the first podcast episode, he contacted us. Mm-hmm. His new maintain. And I guess what I want to say is, man, the brother is very being. I was, evading the guy. Certainly, we had a rough conversation the first time I talked to him. But I will say this, the brother has been so impactful when he comes onto the podcast.
Yeah.
He's given me a lot of information, and so is our brother Outer Brian. And I just want to tell all African and Black men is that we are under a threat globally. And so I know this conversation is a little catchy, but what we really need is the original African man. We need the African American man. We need because I noticed as I've been working with maintainers from another community in the Goblin Outer Bryant, we need our men to come together to start helping this thing develop. And being in Uganda has forced us to work together. And man, but the results are great. And I'm just thinking, like, how far in my life would I be had I been practicing these same things like 20 years ago? I'd already be filthy rich. All of us would have been rich because we need men to help each other. And we are running away from each other, which I was about to do. You know what I mean? And now you can engage and you can't get different things of how to do things, and you can't share information and you can't share connections. So the whole point of this whole thing is all Black men need to understand. Look at the Latino community. Look what their verbiage. Look at their language. Look at their positions. The Latino community is saying we built the country. We have a $2.8 trillion spending power. We have the numbers. The Black man has to also respond to that energy, and we have to start to say we have the numbers also. So we need the Black men, African men. Start treating your men good. And then your men will start to develop, and then your women will start to respect you as you're developing.
Yeah.
Because you can't do anything by yourself. And that's the one thing that African men and African American men are lacking. They're trying to do too many things by themselves. And that's why you don't get as much development. So once we get our Black men, our African men start working together, watch how things start changing. But we need the men to start, really getting involved in that. So thank you, Agaba, for making me a believer, because I didn't believe in your ass for nothing. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
I forgive you, brother.
Well, thank you for that heartfelt message to the men out there. But this is not a podcast just for the men, okay? It's also for the ladies, for the women. We love you. Thank you so much for watching us, and follow us on all our social media platforms at Kengana Nation. If you want to see Miss Kuhani Hani, head over to the Pan African Dating Show. Shout out to Rachel and Kuhani for joining us today. We'll see you guys next time.